all, it is Mickey, and I was asked on one of my recent videos to post a video about how I stay optimistic. And I thought that was a great topic, and so here we go. First of all, no one is born being optimistic or pessimistic. That's something we learn as we get older, just from different life experiences. I have not always been an optimistic person. I was taught from an early age to be pessimistic, and that followed me well into my teens and 20s. And so optimism, regardless of where you are now, it's something that can be learned, and it really helps make life a lot easier to go through. So how is that? Well, there's a lot of different ways. And first things first, I want to make clear that this is not about suppressing negative emotion. You are human. Negative emotions are going to happen. If you are not experiencing sadness, heartbreak, grief, overwhelmment, things like that, you're not human. You're going to have these negative emotions. That's part of the experience. Where this practice comes in is it's more about managing it so that it doesn't overwhelm you with negativity, so that you can find a way out and find some pleasure in the day and go from being in a more negative state to being in a more positive state where you can manage your emotions and expectations and things like that. And it is a little bit windy. I hope the wind is not affecting the audio quality very much, but yeah, bear with me. So that being said, when something bad does happen, when something does seem like it's just the end all be all, you can sit with it, like feel it, understand it, because in those emotions, it's actually a question that you're asking, and every question has an answer. But as Albert Einstein once said, and I'm horribly paraphrasing here, you basically cannot find the answer to a question, especially a big one, while you are frustrated by the question. Like, they're two different wavelengths. You have to get out of that mindset before the answer will appear or come to you. So, yes, feel that negative emotion. Feel that it sucks. It's just something that happened, whether or not it was your fault, whatever. Feel that and be with it and do what you need to do. But here's the catch: don't dwell in it. You don't need to dwell in it for very long at all, because what happens, the longer you dwell in it, the more momentum you're going to pick up pushing in that direction about how much, how unfair it was, how much life sucks, how it shouldn't have happened, how it's horrible, and things like that. And the more you maintain that momentum, the more it's going to, kind of overtake what you're seeing and believing. So don't get caught up in it. Feel it, experience it, but then figure out ways to move on. And this is kind of something I touched on in the last video. It's not about just putting the smiley face sticker on it and saying, okay, now I'm good. It's you still want that answer. You still want to feel it. You still want the clarity. And that comes from just finding a little bit of relief. And that's what I touched on last time, but it goes a little bit further than that. Because at the heart of it, yes, you want that problem solved, but really when it comes down to just the pure basics, all you really want is just to feel better. And there's a lot of ways to do that. It doesn't necessarily have to fix the problem, but feeling better will start that process. And there's a lot of ways to go about that. If you have a hobby, do a hobby, draw, write, go out and take pictures. If you're a bird nerd like me, go look at your backyard, look at birds. there's a lot of different ways that will distract yourself so that you can kind of open up a little bit and not be so defined by that problem. A lot of other things, as I touched on in that last video, is just finding a better feeling thought. And you can do this in a lot of different ways. Sometimes it's finding that small win, like I mentioned. Just a little bit of a thing, looking outside, seeing how nice the weather is. Or maybe you have a dog, cuddle up with your dog. Maybe you have a cat, cuddle up with your cat. Watch a funny movie. Watch a good feeling movie. And that will kind of temporarily, subside that momentum. And the trick is not to jump back into the problem. The trick is to say, okay, I'm feeling a little bit better. How can I perpetuate this? And then do something that makes you feel good. If you've, got some extra money, treat yourself to something. Make yourself feel good. And what that's going to do is it's kind of going to put you in a different mindset. And then you will be in the place to sort of find that answer, that solution. And maybe it's such a big problem that it's not your job to find the solution, but you can at least feel a little bit better about it. And that's more or less the gist of, the immediate thing. But in terms of being an optimist, it comes with a lot of practice. Like I said, I was not an optimist early on, but it's something that I've trained myself to do because, honestly, just you want to feel good through this life. You want to have fun. I do believe that life is about having fun and exploring who you are and being your truest self. And you can't really do that if you're down in the dumps. So you need to just sort of give yourself a break. Don't take on as much personally. Don't get caught up in the drama. Don't get caught up in politics, especially. It can go either way very fast. And if you kind of dwell too much in the negativity of what's going on, like if you watch the news, it's gonna feed you the scariest parts of humanity. But that's not really who humanity is. Humanity, really, all life on this planet, nature included, is rooted in love. I believe that thoroughly. I believe everything is rooted in love, and it kind of permeates everything. And if that's sounding a little bit like the Force in Star Wars, it kind of is. George Lucas took a lot of inspiration from a lot of Eastern beliefs and religions, and that's kind of where a lot of it comes from. But back on track. So I believe that any source of evil, anything like horrible people, people that are just doing atrocious things, they are people, they're not born evil, but they are taught to cut themselves off from that natural source of love. And that's the thing, is like it's available to everybody. And that's why I've even told a couple of haters here and there, it's like, you're invited to this party and you're the only one refusing the invite. So this isn't like an exclusive thing for some people that are born blessed and some aren't. Like, all you have to do is just identify a lot of times those negative thoughts that are taught to you from a young age that just sort of dictate how you should be, how you should behave. And that was certainly the source of a lot of my pessimism, is I was taught by my family and the culture around me that life isn't fair and it sucks and things don't get better and the world is scary and all this stuff. And you know what? That is not true. The world is freaking beautiful. Get out there and look at it. There is so much beauty out there, and that comes with releasing a lot, that awareness comes with releasing a lot of those negative thoughts that are built up in your head. And to be fair, a lot of this gets easier to see with age. That's why you look at older generations, and a lot of them just sort of seem to be more at peace. And that's because they've recognized that, it's not worth putting up the struggle, putting up the fight with yourself, because all those negative habits are sort of drilled into you from a young age. And your parents may have been completely well-meaning, but they might have still integrated you with some not super positive beliefs. And that's not their fault. I mean, kind of is, but everybody's doing the best they can, especially when you have kids. And so what really happens is we kind of grow up with a lot of just self-doubt. There's a lot of fear that's introduced to us. And that sort of kind of takes its own shape as we grow up and develop. And some people are able to shatter it a little quickly. Some people aren't aware that they're having those thoughts. I certainly wasn't aware for a long time. And it just sort of, it's one of those things, you need to really pay attention to the thoughts that are going on in your head, because that's going to tell you where you're spending a lot of time and what is being fed to you really throughout each day. Meditation helps a lot. I start every day off with meditation. If you're not into that, that's totally fine, to each their own, but it does help you kind of be more aware of your thoughts, so you can identify when a random subconscious thought enters your head. All of a sudden you can make it conscious and say, oh, that's actually something negative that I've been believing for a really long time. I don't want that. And it's really just a long process. This is not an overnight switch you can make, but it is a process that you could just start whenever you want and just sort of start identifying those negative thoughts in your head. And over time, as you just release them and you give yourself more credit, you allow in more self-love and things like that, you'll notice within like a year or two, like, oh wow, I've come a long way. I was really negative back then, and now the world seems a little bit brighter. So this is just me rambling off the top of my head. I don't know 100% if that is everything that I have done to become a more optimistic person, but it's definitely a start. And if I do think of more, I will put them out there if y'all are up for it. But that's kind of my approach to life. It's because I do believe that love permeates everything, that it's gonna win out eventually. And that also kind of is what makes me such a big Star Trek nerd. If you're not into Star Trek, this might be the time to start. Or the Orville. It's kind of both the same thing, same concept. Where you see a lot of post-apocalyptic movies that are in that post-apocalyptic kind of dark period. Star Trek and the Orville pick up after we've all kind of worked together to overcome those challenges. Star Trek, especially if I'm feeling down, I like putting on because it typically ends very optimistically, with a lot of hope. And really, this is especially true of the next generation. If you're new to Star Trek and you're looking for a little hope and optimism in this world, I would jump straight into Star Trek: The Next Generation. Maybe watch the first episode in season 1, but then skip the rest of season 1. It's not great, but it starts to pick up with season 2, and season 3 is where they really hit their stride. But the whole basis of Star Trek is that, after we pretty much nearly annihilated ourselves, humanity was forced to come together and not fight about our differences, but use our differences to further, to kind of dig ourselves out of a hole. And so it's about working together despite differences. It's about understanding that people's differences are what makes them special. And that, to me, is absolutely beautiful. Like I said, the Orville brought that up too, is based on that. And really, that first episode in The Next Generation is really interesting because it does predict that in the mid-21st century, there would be a lot of just, essentially what we're seeing right now. A lot of fascism taking over, a lot of kangaroo courts, which was essentially going to be the predecessor to World War III. So, eerily prophetic, but definitely worth watching. Especially if you just want to jump in. I would say jump into season 3 if you didn't want to deal with a lot of the backstory. But it is what it does so well. I would still say Star Trek: The Next Generation is like the gold standard of Star Trek. And what it does so well is it just takes these human stories, like any type of human drama problem, and it puts them so beautifully together and works on and really kind of, wrestles with these ethical issues that we're still dealing with today. I mean, the episodes that were created were timeless. They were filmed back in the 80s and 90s, and they are still just as relevant and powerful as they are today as they were back then. So that also gives me a little bit of optimism and hope for the future, because even though it's predicted to get a little darker, we will figure out a way to come together and embrace our differences rather than fight over them. So if that sounds nice, watch Star Trek: The Next Generation, understanding that the bulk of season 1 is terrible. I would say watch the first episode of season 1 to sort of figure out who's who and what's going on. But after that, skip to season 2 if you're not interested in watching all of it. But yeah, you will get hooked because it's just so beautifully written. It's so powerful. And when I'm having a bad day, I will put on 2 episodes of Star Trek: The Next Generation, and I will feel better by the time it's done. So that's kind of my long-winded spiel. Being optimistic is something you have to train yourself to. It's not something you can just wake up being. And it takes practice. It takes, mental discipline. It's something you really kind of have to work at. And so it's something you can accomplish. Don't feel bad about it. That's the most important thing, is don't beat yourself up. Everyone's in this life coming from a different place, and you are who you are, and you're born with all the strength and the gifts you need to get to where you want to be. So don't feel bad. If it takes a while, you'll get there. But yeah, that's all I got for now. Thank y'all so much for watching. If you want more of these, let me know. I will try to work up more topics, and I love y'all. Thank y'all so much. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Questions or comments, I love reading them. I love hearing them. And I will see y'all next time. Love you.